If you have two different size feet, everyone's got advice as to what you should do. Just size up for your bigger foot. Use gel inserts on your smaller one. Your feet will adjust. Yeah, that works great until you break the shoes in. And then your smaller foot starts sliding out like it's trying to escape Alcatraz. Here's the part that nobody explains. The difference in half sizes for Christian Louboutin is only 3 millimeters. That's only this much. So, does buying two different sizes even matter? Because if you watched my comprehensive sizing guide, you may have noticed something interesting. My feet aren't twins. At best, they're distant cousins. Different in both length and width. So I decided to run a little test. I bought the same pair in two different sizes and wore them at the exact same time. And the answer is not what most people expect. Hey everyone, Modern Mama Shark here, and in today's video, we're tackling one of the questions I get asked the most. How do you size your Louboutins when your feet are two different sizes? A lot of you may have just realized that you have two different size feet. The reason for that is with normal shoes, it really doesn't matter. For example, if you're wearing tennis shoes, you can get away with buying the larger size to fit your larger foot because they're going to be tied on. Even with ones that are like looser or slip-on tennis shoes, they're covering your whole foot, so it's not likely that your smaller foot is going to try to escape. But with high heels, especially with leather high heels such as Louboutins, it's a lot more challenging because they are going to break in and mold to your feet over time, so you need a really snug fit. Here's the critical thing to remember is that if your feet differ in length, there's a good chance they're going to differ in width too. And if you remember from my sizing guide, when you go up in size in Louboutin, it only changes the length, not the width. So if you're thinking, I'll just get a bigger size and then there will be more room for my wide foot, stop. Unfortunately, that's not how this works. Remember, Alcatraz. You'll end up with shoes that are way too long for your feet, and once you break them in, they'll be sliding off your feet. One of the questions I get asked all the time is, do I size for my larger foot or my smaller foot? And the answer is neither. I meet in the middle. I will find the largest size that my smaller foot can handle without a big heel gap or slipping out. And then I will find the smallest size that my larger foot can handle without feeling incredibly scrunched. So that intersection between my smaller foot and my larger foot, that's my size. Now, technically, if the shoes are too small for your feet, or if the size that you picked is too small for your larger foot, you will be able to get your foot in the shoe. So the question becomes, how do you tell if that is the right size or if it's too small? If it's the right size, you will feel tightness along the edges of the toe box and you will feel tightness along your toes. If you're wearing the shoe for a little bit and you start to feel pain like right here in the center of your foot, that's a deal breaker. They are the wrong size. Go up a half size. What is happening is that the shoe is not long enough and it's actually very subtly scrunching your foot back, like squeezing it back. So you'll end up over time feeling pain right here in the center of your foot. That is the ultimate telltale that will let you know whether or not they are the right size or too small. Breaking in your shoe is really where you're going to dial in and customize your fit. So if you follow my whole breaking in guide and breaking in process, you will break them in naturally and they will be molded to your foot shape. But one thing I didn't mention in that guide is that I make a very focused and intentional effort to break in the left shoe a little bit more than the right shoe because it's going on my foot that's larger. So my left foot is my little drama queen. It's the TV reality star that requires just a little bit more attention than the right foot. I may use a shoe stretcher once or twice on both of them, but I will go in a third time and use a shoe stretcher only on the left shoe. It's not a requirement. Yes, you can break in the shoes and have them be customized to your feet without doing it, but it just makes it so much easier. You're gonna save your poor big foot a little bit of stress if you do this. Now, when I'm talking about breaking in the shoe, specifically, we're breaking in the width. So we're breaking in the sides here where your toes are gonna naturally break it in anyways. We're not talking about the length of the shoe. I know there's some shoe stretchers out there that can lengthen the shoe. I don't use those at home. I would honestly be terrified to use them at home because I would be afraid to damage the shoe. Because then you're talking about changing the structure of the shoe. And if you do it wrong, that can actually damage the shoe. So this isn't about trying to jam your larger foot into a shoe that's too small. Because the difference between half sizes is so minimal, there is a grace window where both feet can feel comfortable. So it's about finding that size that both feet can tolerate within that system, and then letting the material settle naturally from there. In high heels, the leather softens and the toe box relaxes slightly. Within 3mm half sizes, small differences can become comfortable over time without changing the structure of the shoe. This works best when your feet are within a full size difference. So if you're a half size or a full size different, this will work great for you. If you're a size and a half or 2 sizes different, then split sizing would probably make a lot more sense for you. I'm going to briefly show you a pair of shoes that are well broken in. These are the Pigalle Folies in a Napa, and I feel like they show really well on camera the difference in shoe size. These are the exact same size, it's just that I've broken this one in a little bit further. So with the one that goes on my smaller foot, there is a little bit of bubbling out here from where I broke them in, but not a lot. It's still relatively thin here on the side. And then if you look at this one that goes on my larger foot, there's a huge bubble out right here, one right here, and you can tell right here that it's a lot wider, and that's simply from them being broken in by my larger foot. All right, guys, let's talk heel pads, because I know that that is usually the first thing people tell you to use when your shoes are too big. I don't recommend them long term. And I say this as someone who absolutely tried to make them work. Unfortunately, I had to learn the hard way. They're not a structural solution. Here's what happened. I bought a pair of Napa Hot Chicks in my usual patent size, 37.5. What I didn't realize at the time was that Napa stretches a lot more than patent, so I actually should have gotten the 37. But even then, I wasn't wildly off. I was still my normal Louboutin size. I broke them in at home and I thought everything was fine. And then I wore them out one time and they were sliding off my feet almost every single step. So I did what everyone recommends and I got thick heel pads. At first it felt better and I was positive I was going to be able to make these shoes work even though they were just a little bit too big. But that optimism didn't last very long. Here's the part that nobody explains. Heel pads push your foot forward. They don't shrink the shoe. That forward pressure stretched the toe box out even more. And the heel pads themselves stretched the heel out even farther. So now I had more room in the heel, more stretch in the toe box, and the problem compounded instead of improving. And visually, it just didn't look right. From the back, they look too big because the heel was now too wide, and that heel pad actually amplified the look of the heel gap. But from the front, they look too small because my foot was being jammed into the toe box. And that's when it clicked. I wasn't fixing the fit. I was negotiating with it, trying to buy back borrowed time with my shoes. They're a temporary tool, not a structural solution. And in leather heels, this often accelerates the wrong kind of breaking in. Now, can they have a place? Yes. If you need the shoes to cooperate for one night, for one event, yes, of course, they can help. And material matters. You will get a lot more borrowed time with a pair of patent heels over Nappa because patent takes so much longer to break in. And if it's a non-leather material such as that PVC plastic or the mesh with the little crystals, that's totally fine because those don't stretch in the same way that leather does. So day 1 is how you're going to feel on day 100. So in those cases, heel pads aren't compounding the stretch in the same way. But if we're talking leather heels that you wear regularly, time is not your friend. If the shoes are returnable, try sizing down first and see how you feel. Always try the structural solution before the comfort hack. Because in high heels, especially luxury high heels, structure is everything. We're not forcing our feet into shoes that don't fit. And we're not forcing oversized shoes to shrink to us. We're choosing the right size, and that's the difference. All right, guys, so here's my real world experiment. These are the exact same style shoes, just in 2 different sizes. The stars of the show today are the Christian Louboutin Pegao Follies in nude. I have a 37 for my skinny foot and a 37.5 for my fat foot. My left foot is 240 millimeters long and 97 millimeters wide. That's my fat foot. My right foot is 234 millimeters long and 95 millimeters wide. That's my skinny foot. So there is a 6 millimeter difference in length and a 2 millimeter difference in width. So basically, my fat foot is a full size bigger than my skinny foot. Yeah. Now, like I mentioned before, the difference in length is only 3 millimeters. Fortunately, the difference in heel height between half sizes is less than 1 millimeter, so it's very minimal. To be honest, when they arrived, I had to measure them 3 times just to make sure that they were 2 different sizes because they really don't look that different. I've never had anyone look at me and ask, are those 2 different sizes? No. They look like the exact same shoe. And honestly, they feel like it when I'm wearing them. I'm not walking lopsided. You know, one side doesn't feel taller than the other. No joke, I can't tell that I'm wearing 2 different sizes. So that is really awesome because if you do happen to find a mismatched pair, you know that more than likely you're not going to be able to tell a difference when you wear them. You're not going to feel like one shoe is significantly bigger than the other. Here's the plot twist. I've been wearing the same size shoes my whole life. So my norm is to have my fat foot feel really tight and scrunched. But then I tried on split sizes. And for the first time in my entire life, both of my feet were equally tight. And both of my feet had the correct size. And my brain glitched. It was like I was in the Matrix. I had no idea how to process that feeling of having both feet be equally tight. It was weird. So our brain adapts to asymmetry and it becomes the norm. So when suddenly everything is the same, your brain starts to freak out. It's like, wait, something's wrong here, something's broken. It's almost like when you get a new pair of glasses or when you fix your posture and suddenly you're walking around tall. At first, it will feel wrong. Like your brain just doesn't know how to process it. But after a few days, you get used to it. It took me about 3 days before I finally felt normal walking in the mismatched shoes. Even now, because this is my only mismatched pair, the days that I do wear them, It feels a little awkward for that first hour. My brain has to adjust because every other day I'm wearing a pair of shoes that's the exact same size. So it does take a little bit of mental processing to get used to that feeling. So the real question at the end of this video is, should you buy 2 different sizes? My recommendation is only buy 2 different sizes if you're over a full size different in your feet, or if you can afford it. For most people, it's not going to be worth the hassle. If you do decide that you want to get 2 different sizes, the number one recommendation I have is to not get more than a full size difference.
If you go to a size and a half difference,
I do think that is going to be a little bit more obvious. And I think you're going to feel it when you walk, most importantly. The other thing you need to think about is the price. That is the number one reason why all my shoes, except for this pair, are the exact same size. Because it can get very pricey buying 2 pairs of shoes just to have 1 pair. And it's hard to find a sales associate that will accommodate split sizing. If you do find someone that does it, please feel free to let me know because I will probably order all my shoes from them. I got really lucky because I got these as a mismatched pair from Nordstrom's. So it does happen occasionally. You will find that perfect unicorn mismatched pair that happens to be the exact sizes that you need. And that is what happened with me. So keep an eye out. It does happen. Believe it or not, it does happen occasionally. No matter what size you pick, run my 3 heel test as soon as you get them. I'll link that video at the end. It's only 3 minutes and it will show you exactly what to do. Measure your feet, know your numbers, run your heel test, and if both shoes pass, you're golden. So, did buying 2 different sizes change my life? Honestly, no. But it was really eye-opening to the possibilities. If I happen to find another unicorn pair that is perfectly mismatched to my size, I will definitely be buying them. Do you have 2 different size feet? Drop a note in the comments. I'm actually really curious to see how common this is. And if you haven't yet, watch my full sizing guide. It'll save you a ton of money and heartache. Remember, life is short. Wear the heels, even when your feet demand separate accommodations.